And tonight, the state budget is getting put to a vote. It is expected to give towns and cities some relief when it comes to funding schools. Your reporter Katie Cohen is live at the state capitol to explain. Katie, what's the latest here?
Cassidy, some breaking news in the past half hour. The Senate did vote to pass the proposed budget. The members of the House just got here a few minutes ago, and they are expected to debate and also vote tonight. That's very important because it is crunch time here. The legislative session ends on Wednesday, so they only have a few more days to vote on this proposed budget, which would give towns and cities a combined $270 million to fund education. It's the first time that would happen in 13 years. It comes after mayors and superintendents rallied for help, saying they can't afford to fund their school districts. Many districts like Bristol and New Britain have considered cutting teachers and some sports programs. Republicans say they wanted more money to help schools. They also wanted to lower taxes, saying the proposed budget would make Connecticut the state with the third highest taxes in the nation. But Democrats say this budget is a success. They say they are investing in the children who are the future of the state.
The thoroughgoing nature of the relief that we are providing, it will reach into every corner of the state of Connecticut and help every resident of the state of Connecticut. And to emphasize the fundamental investments that those dollars represent.
At a time when Connecticut residents are feeling the pain of one of the most unaffordable states in the country, they deserve relief. So we, my Senate Republican colleagues and I, offered an amendment that would deliver tax relief, cut some of the wasteful spending, and also protect us against rising debt.
Again, the House is expected to vote on this proposed budget tonight. Then, once it's passed in both the House and the Senate, it'll go to Governor Lamont's desk to be signed into law. Your reporter live at the state capitol, Katie Cohen, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.